The majority of child sexual abuse is committed by children against other children.
Over half of young men said that they got most of their sex education from porn.
Sexual strangulation is now the leading cause of strokes amongst women under 40.
Why on earth would you have sex with a real person if that person isn't going to play into your rape fantasy?
It's not even that it's shaping deviant behaviour, it's also shaping the behaviour of people who think they're being caring and loving to their partners.
It kind of reaches into your very soul and switches it off.
We need to do what we have done with transgenderism, because it is the source of so many of these sort of social problems, is actually pornography.
If you fuck up your brain with porn, can you unfuck your brain? Hi everyone, I am here in a part of London called Little Venice, which isn't really anything like Venice, but they've got some canals and there's lots of boats and it's a gorgeous area, I have to say that. And I'm here to meet Joe Bartosch and Robert Jessel, who've just written a new book called Pornocracy. So I'm going to interview them about that. It's a bit heavy. I've read about half of it and it's like, oh my god. It's basically about how porn is fucking up society, our brains, rewiring our brains even, changing the way that we view sex, relationships, emotional bonding. So yeah, it's a bit heavy going. So I'm just looking for the barge. So they've got themselves a barge for a few days here in Little Venice. So I'm just gonna look for it. And for me, being in this area is always like going down memory lane, because back in 2003, I was part of a show called News Review. And that's the longest running live satirical sketch comedy show in the world, I think. It's been going for like 40 years. So I was part of that in 2003 for 6 weeks. And it was great because we'd come in the morning and we'd be given scripts and songs, all satirical stuff. You know, this is in the days of George Bush and Tony Blair and David Beckham. You know, feels like a lifetime ago now. And then we'd go over the scripts and the songs and we'd pick the ones that we liked and we'd rejig them and we'd write our own stuff. I loved doing that. And that was, oh, I'm just walking up to the theatre. Now, there we go. So the pub is called the Bridge House and the theatre is called the Canal Cafe Theatre. Right, let's check if they're still there. I'm going to go inside. Yes, it's still here. Home of News Review. Yeah, and there you can see it's been running for 46 years. But I'm here to talk about porn. So let's go find this barge and meet Joe and Rob. You get some real big old houses here. This is a wealthy area. I think Sade lives here. Anyways, if you want to support me and my reporting and interviews, then you can do so via Patreon. That's monthly. Or if you prefer, you know, show me some love on a one-off basis via PayPal or on here via Super Thanks. Right, where is this barge? In the book they talk about the death of love, so maybe this is where we can find our salvation. In the public toilet. We found love in a hopeless place. Okay, change of plan. I've just been told that the barge was actually set on fire, but it was still on online to be booked, so I'm heading somewhere else now, so no barge, but that's how it goes. So, see you in a bit. Okay, so no barge, but we found a place. So I am here with Robert Jessel, Joe Bartosch, the authors of this new book, Pornocracy. So thanks very much for joining me here.
Oh, delighted to be here.
And I have to say, I wasn't quite sure if I was looking forward to this interview, because it's such a heavy material that you're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And I've read about 2/3 of it. And it's like, okay, touch grass.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, it was hard to write.
And in the acknowledgements, you said, we were anticipating that this was going to be hard to write. Was it as tough as you thought it would be? Or did you sort of underestimate how tough it would be?
Well, I think it was definitely a reason why I didn't want to write it alone, and why I thought the perspective actually of a man might be quite useful. And yeah, it was tough. I think we made a conscious decision that if we were going to look at pornography, we would tell one another and made sure that we did it under sort of quite restricted circumstances for the research. But yeah, I'm not going to lie, it did seep into my brain. It does haunt me. And what we sort of discovered and what we came across, yeah, I feel changed by it.
I thought it was going to be, sorry, I thought it was going to be an intellectual challenge to write the book. I was not prepared for what an emotional challenge it would be. And I think it was within the first week, I think, of doing the reading, starting off the research on the brain, that I really started to realise what a massive problem this is for men, and how trapped porn users are. And the more that I dug in, the more I realised how enslaved we all are. And I've got to admit, I myself have used porn, and when I saw the patterns of behaviour and how it hijacks your brain, not only was I very glad to stop using it myself, but I could see what a tragedy it is for men, and that they then go to inflict in all their relationships out in the world.
Right. And like you just said, you feel changed. In what way do you feel changed? Do you feel bitter or or more determined?
Well, I've always been a feminist. There's always been a bit of bitterness there, but I think particularly doing the research around criminality and patterns of male criminality, and just sort of finding out that actually a third of men would consider, as studies have shown, forcing sex on a woman. That's how they termed it in the study. So rape, essentially. A third of men in, your colleagues, your friends would consider that. And to have pornography added to that is absolutely terrifying. And sort of knowing how it changes behaviour. And I think just that sort of feeling of vulnerability, and sort of looking around at men you trust, men you like, and thinking, oh my God, actually we are, the fabric of society is so fragile, and this thing is just ripping through it. And that's I think what really disturbed me, was just to realise how fine the balance is between civilization and safety and absolute barbarism.
Right, and there's one particular line that I read this morning, because there's a certain writing style in this book. It's quite brutal. It doesn't, you don't mince your words, right? I mean, you wouldn't anyway. I know that from your articles. But there was one line that I just thought of as you were saying that, which was about a judge, where you say the judge and jury might be masturbating to the very scenes that mirror a rape victim's ordeal, slightly paraphrased.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
And the same thing, when we know at the moment there's a petition, an NHS petition, or petition to ensure that the NHS has an investigation into sexual violence in hospitals. That's obviously a subgenre of pornography in itself. So you think about the fact that your gynecologist might be getting off on what he's doing. It's pretty grotesque. And that obviously the way that pornography works is that you get trapped into these cycles. So, when you think about the impact it has on the behaviour of ordinary men who surround you, I think as a woman it makes you feel very vulnerable.
And that's why when Julia Long says, let's separate,
Yeah, she's
ditch men, you're like,
she's got a point.
Right, so where did the idea come from? Do you have like a history in looking into porn? Because I just had a quick look. It seems like it's a field where there's been a lot of research over the years. What made you go, oh, let's write a book about this?
I mean, I think actually what's interesting is that recent research has been very hard to conduct, because it's hard to get through ethics boards, because they know now that pornography has such a detrimental impact on the subject that it's very hard to even get that approved. So I think there's probably a dearth of modern research. It's also now very hard to find subjects who haven't seen quite a lot of pornography. So you can't have a sample to compare against who haven't seen it.
So there's no comparison group.
Yeah, so it's really hard to find a group of people who haven't actually looked at porn. The reason I thought it was so pressing is because I think it's just hugely under-acknowledged as a force that changes behaviour. So, you know, we're all starting to talk now about, for example, social media and about the impact of doom scrolling, of sort of getting your dopamine hits, of clicking, of scrolling. And yet pornography is like that, except there's an added orgasm at the end. So that's such a powerful teaching aid. And it is reshaping the way that we think about things. And I think it's reshaping policy. And when it comes to things like trans identification, which is primarily what I write on, I actually think it is the underlying reason why people choose to transition.
Right, yeah. I think it was in the first chapter that you mentioned different ways that could, you know, you could go from the porn to trans pipeline, if you like. One was women feeling that they're not good enough. The other was men feeling they're not good enough and they can't live up to, you know, what they see in porn. And then there's the other where it's a fetishistic thing why men want to become women. And one man who's been writing about that a lot and gets lauded for it and gets, you know, a Pulitzer Prize, maybe not for that particular essay that he did, is Andrea Longshu, or Chu, I don't know how you pronounce that name. And he first wrote an essay, Did Sissy Porn Make Me Trans? Sissy porn being a specific category of porn where men get degraded, right?
Yes.
To be and humiliated, like you're worthless, you're nothing.
And quite often hypnotized too.
Yeah.
Sort of,
Yeah, it's like hypnotic music, like pulsating, doom, 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 doom. And then there's a voice saying you're worthless, you're nothing, you've got a tiny dick, your dick is just a clit. YouTube is not going to like this video. I don't think I'm going to be able to monetize this one.
They are on YouTube. I mean, they're on mainstream sites.
Right. And he wrote this, you know, in his book Females, where he basically said that the whole point of being female is to be fucked, right? Female is what fucked is, and fucked is what female is, or something along those lines. He wrote, in sissy porn, the looping gifs are a kind of centrifuge for distilling the femaleness to its barest essentials. An open mouth, an expectant asshole, blank, blank eyes.
Yeah, and I think that's just that stereotype of woman, the idea that what it is to be a woman is this horrible man-made fantasy of basically being used by a man, that all women exist for is to be used by a man, that the telos of woman, if you like, is prostitute, is something that is intrinsic to both pornography and transgenderism. And I think that's why there's such resistance if you push against transgenderism. It's because you're essentially pushing against these men's fetish, a sense. And it's not only their fetish. I think now identity politics has reached a point of sexual identity politics. So who they are is embodied in their identity. So, you know, it's transgenderism is a sort of a manifestation of the pornography that they watch.
Right. Plus, it gets reframed as a human rights issue, where it's all about freedom of expression and freedom of speech. We'll get into. Sorry.
Can I just chime in on that? I've heard that quote and read that quote many times, of course, and this is the first time hearing it back. What that makes me think of is what we explore in the last chapter. If you read that quote again, what he is describing to me is a sex doll. It is something which has been completely depersonalized, and I know that we're going to get to sort of AI and sex dolls down the line, but this is the ultimate trajectory of porn, where you remove the personhood entirely and you have something that you can do whatever you want to and will never ever say no, whether it's an AI that will always agree with you and stroke your ego, or if it's a doll that you can do the most bizarre degrading things to. That's the ultimate destination of porn.
Yeah.
Wow. See, I never knew that. It was this quote that first made me think, oh wow, it actually changes behavior. And he's admitted that that's the very point of sissy porn, that it changes the person watching it.
Yeah.
Your book says that's not just unique to sissy porn, that's basically what porn does.
Yes.
So where did the idea come from of, okay, we need a book and I want to be the one to write it? And it was interesting that you said you didn't want to write it alone.
No, I think probably because I knew I could, because I've dealt with a lot of these sort of issues when it comes to writing on transgenderism. There's such an overlap, and I also write about sort of male violence against women more broadly, so I knew that I think I just felt it's something that needed to be done. And yeah, no, I didn't want to do it on my own because because I knew what it would probably involve, and I wasn't wrong.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think possibly the genesis of this book in your thinking, or certainly the way that you described it to me, is you were very interested to explore the influence of porn upon different identities, cultural groupings, especially trans, and sort of, that was one of the drivers.
Yeah, absolutely, and the crossover with crime as well.
Yes,
I've always found sort of grimly fascinating. So
Grimly fascinating, I think,
Yeah.
is a good way of putting it.
So my background, my day job is writing about technology, which I've done for about 18 years. I think I started in the field just as sort of the first smartphones were coming in, and although I didn't do consumer tech, I was always sort of watching to see how the infrastructure grew, and the link between porn and tech. I mean, they aren't separate things; they're completely indivisible. So I was interested in it from that perspective, but also in the sense I was very interested to know what porn does to the brain, and to explore whether there were addictive properties of porn. I very quickly discovered that that's a really stupid question, because that's like asking, are smartphones addictive? Is the internet addictive? Is TikTok, Instagram, social media? If you deny that, then you just look crazy. And there are still people out there working very hard to deny that porn is addictive, when it's clearly not only addictive, it's designed to be so.
Designed to be addictive. We'll get into that more a bit later in the conversation. What are porn widows? That was a term that I read in one of them, in one of the chapters.
Oh, well, actually, it was you, wasn't it, who I think you made contact with the porn widows.
I have spoken to, for the book, we did reach out. We were very fortunate with Joe's network of people working in this field who were able to put us in touch with women who were, wanted to tell their stories. That was I would say for me one of the hardest parts, because the whole book is not just about what porn does to people who watch it and masturbate to it, but how it affects everybody that those people come into contact with. It affects their relationships with their loved ones and their family too. And obviously no one's going to be more effective than a spouse. And the story, as one sees in stories of addiction, if you go to 12-step groups, the stories are always really the same. It sort of started off as something that was personal, that you hid from your nearest and dearest, and it begins to take over your life. You do it in secret, and you start neglecting the other person. But here we're talking about the most fundamental building blocks of life, which is sex and love. And the more you get into porn, the less you get into your spouse, and the less you are having sex, and the less you are expressing your love for them. And when that happens, it leads people on to do really, really dreadful things.
So a porn widow is somebody who's lost their partner to a porn addiction, basically.
Yes.
It reminds me of a Kate Bush song called Deeper Understanding. It's the video for it that's really interesting, because it's about, even though the song was written in the 80s, how a family man, gets completely addicted to a software program. So this is CD-ROM, right, in those days.
Okay.
So in the video that she made for it, which was made a few years ago, it's a famous actor. I think he played Hagrid in Harry Potter.
Oh,
Robbie Cole.
Yes. So he just loads the program, and all it is a mouth. It's just a mouth on in a white screen, and then a mouth that just mouths things like, I understand you, or, that there's whatever sound comes out of it is very comforting to the man. And then he becomes obsessed with it. So he doesn't go to work anymore. He stops, there's one scene where his family comes through the door and is like, what the hell? And then they fade away. I think the way she visualized it is this, when the mouth opens, something comes out of it. Right. At the end of the video, I think. And it's like a ball of light, and it gets into him, and then he kind of starts short-circuiting, and then he walks down the street with that light in his mouth, and he just basically loses the plot.
Yeah, that seems like the perfect metaphor. But yeah.
Plus, because it's called deeper understanding, it's this myth that this will connect you, this will give you what you want, when actually it does the very opposite.
Yeah.
And so if we get back to the title of the book, Pornocracy, where is it? And even the cover, like, it's quite hard-hitting.
I hated it to start with. I quite
Really?
like it now.
Okay, so it wasn't like you were like, right, we need a brain in a harness.
No, it was not our design. I was just like, I hate that so very much.
Okay.
And now I think it probably does
I
encapsulate
think the
things.
suggestions that we sent to the publisher were so, shall we say, brutal and gruesome that they probably couldn't put that in.
This was the compromise.
It was, yes.
What were your ideas?
So I quite like the idea of having a mouth with cables dribbling out of it. That was my idea.
Cables?
Well,
Yeah.
like
You're hooked in.
and also like ejaculate.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sort of,
I thought that would have worked quite well. But anyway.
yeah, but it didn't happen. So
They went, let's go for something more lighthearted. Because in a way, this to me is more about fetish rather than porn, in a way.
Yeah, I mean...
Especially more like gay harnesses, whereas the book focuses more on straight.
Well, it does. I mean, I think when it comes to sort of fetish, I think there's pretty much no divide now. I mean, pornography in itself is a fetish, because if you are bonding with something that is a proxy for sex, that's kind of a fetish, isn't it? So if you're bonding with what you're seeing on screen, that's a fetish. So I don't think there's necessarily any sort of obvious division there. And I think when it comes to gay pornography, actually, I think a lot of things that were normalised in gay pornography then sort of bleed across into heterosexual pornography too. So, obviously anal sex is the obvious one. And I think because you don't have the same power differential with gay relationships, that I think that's why you end up with things like BDSM, and I think that then sort of bleeds across into heterosexual pornography too.
Right, and for some reason, we'll get into this in more detail, because this book is so interesting. It's just packed with information and lots of research. So if you just look at the acknowledgement and see all the people that you thank for their help, all the people that you spoke to, but all the, because I was taking lots of notes about all the different research, the surveys and, the studies. Apparently, and this surprised me, because I thought, most users of porn would be men, and most are, but I think it was about 71% men and 20 something percent women, right?
It's very hard to find accurate statistics, and generally, I wouldn't trust Pornhub as far as their stats go, because apart from the but generally it's around about sort of 80-20 in terms of the split.
That surprised me, because I thought it'd be a lot more men and fewer women. But one thing that was mentioned is that women are more drawn to BDSM. And that to me is interesting, because when it comes to gay clubs and gay sex and gay porn, BDSM, that's where there's a lot of acceptance of women who identify as gay men. So I was wondering if there was somehow a connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think essentially it's about submission. I suspect it's probably more likely a trauma response.
Right.
So one of the things we know about the way that that trauma impacts behaviour, particularly child sexual abuse, is that you then replicate and you seek out the same scenarios that were inflicted on you as an adult. So we know that, for example, a lot of pornography performers, I think it's around about sort of 80% of women have experienced child sexual abuse, and then they sort of seek out those similar scenarios and reenact them. And there is some evidence, there's very little research on the matter, but there is some evidence to suggest that the same thing happens with what women watch. So actually, when they sort of look at rape porn or they look at BDSM, it's a way of processing something that happened to them.
Right.
and to try and understand it. Men and women do tend to use porn very differently. So when it's used within the context of a relationship, ordinarily for men, it's something they do privately. It's something they do to withdraw. And with women, it's generally done as a sort of precursor to sex, so sort of a part of
Right,
sex.
foreplay.
So, yeah. So, and the numbers of women who look at pornography every day are pretty much infinitesimally small.
Right, so women at work wouldn't go to the toilet quickly to...
No, it's very, very different to the way that it's used.
Can I just add, and coming back to your point about porn widows, the ones we spoke to in the ones whose testimony we've read, it's quite common for women to start watching porn with their porn addicted husbands as a way of like, I know this is your thing, I can't stop you, at least can I be part of that,
Right.
and perhaps we can use that as a precursor to sex,
Yeah.
so I can keep hold of you. Of course, Pornhub doesn't measure that differently from...
Sure, and that goes back to how women are socialized to be accommodating.
Yes.
Okay. Right, so the title itself, Pornocracy, already says this is more than just, entertainment
Yes.
or an industry even. That this is much more pervasive and affects us it controls us, influences us in a much bigger way than we might realize. So the definition that you gave is pornocracy is a society in which political power, culture, relationships, and identity are shaped or dominated by the purveyors of pornography. That is quite a scary... I don't even think if I say concept that's the right word, because it's not a concept, it's a reality.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like we're in a Black Mirror episode.
I think we are.
And have been for quite a while, but now it's just becoming more apparent.
And I think when you look at, if there was one thing I want to sort of get across about what's happening to people because of pornography, it's that it's not a personal vice. It's not sort of something you do to yourself. It is a social and a political problem.
Yeah.
So the reason being, if you look at things like, I don't know, surrogacy even, I don't think we will be able to conceive of using women as essentially sort of mother objects if we didn't generally perceive them as sex objects. I think those things are intrinsically linked to the idea of sort of buying women, of reducing women to their component parts. If you look at, the obvious one obviously is transgenderism and self-identification policies. That's literally breaking down women's boundaries and barriers. So, whether it's to female-only wards or changing rooms, whatever it has to be. And obviously with changing rooms, that's a whole subgenre of pornography in itself. But all of these things, you can just see there's that thread of essentially reducing womanhood to nothing that I think is intrinsic to both pornography and indeed now sort of progressive politics.
Yeah, there's a quote from you in the book it's a question where you asked, when and how did we lose the idea that it's shameful to turn humans into objects, watch them copulate and see them abused? And when I read that, my first thought was there ever a time when it was not considered acceptable? Maybe I should rephrase. Has there ever been a time where women have not been objectified?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that within my lifetime, pornography was something that you had to make an effort to go out, and it was something that you were scared and ashamed that somebody might find out. You'd go to a newsagent's and you'd wait until no one was there, and you'd buy a copy off the top shelf. You might go into a sex shop, or if you're in a small town, you might not, because imagine coming out of a sex shop, you'd be so ashamed. Now, if I were at school, the average age for seeing pornography is between 11 and 13. If I were on Snapchat, I wouldn't have seen a naked person, a naked woman.
Yeah.
I would have seen and probably shared images which, if they were real and done in real life, would be crimes. Be rape and abuse
Right.
and so forth. And these are the sorts of things that are being shared around, not just by children, of course. But Jo talks in her chapter about crime, about how in staff networks in the police, say, people are quite openly sharing porn, and these are the people who are supposed to prevent sexual
Right.
crime. So I would say that the shame has gone.
Yeah, and that's part of a wider cultural thing that you can't shame anyone for anything, and
Well,
personal
quite.
freedom and freedom of expression, blah, blah, blah. Ugh. I mean, the whole thing is so dark that I'm trying to lighten it up, but I don't know how because it's so serious.
I do wish I wrote about handbags or something sometimes. Kittens.
Kittens. And you've got two now, and they're gorgeous. And like, there's a question that you asked, Rob. There must be something better, and I think this is a good way to approach this, because I've never really thought much about porn and its impact on individuals or society, which is an even bigger thing that you look at in the book. The one thing that made me think was that quote by Andrea Longchu, where I thought, what? The point of the porn is to change the person? That made me go, eh. But you're basically saying that applies across the board. And so you ask one question in the book, there must be something better than wanking to women's pain or having sex with dead-eyed silicone dolls. And this is where I thought, as brutal as the book is, it also has a lot of heart.
Yeah.
Right? And you talk about the death of love. Now, on my way here, somebody scribbled something on the wall saying, lost love, find yourself.
I would say, I mean, we talk about the power that the pornocracy has. Joe and I have quite different takes about what the solution and fight back might be. But I would say the thing that porn is a huge industry. It's very, very high tech. They are above all capitalists, and what do they fear most? Is they fear competition. How can you compete with porn? There's only one competitor, and that's love. And so far, it's winning. And the only way to fight back is to make the idea of loving another person and forming a loving relationship with them a more attractive path to pursue in your life. And that sounds so crazily obvious.
Yeah, but that's the challenge, because if you look at things like chemsex, which particularly affects gay men, I went to a talk about chemsex a few weeks ago, and they were saying that what drives it is loneliness and a need to connect and a need to bond. And especially in the digital age, at least we're from a generation where we know what life was like before the digital age. But everything becomes much more depersonalized. You can just stay at home and live your whole life that way. You know, COVID has shown us how much you don't have to leave the house if you don't have to. So we're up against this huge beast. And so I want to have a look at where we are today. But it's so depressing. Even when you just look at where we are today, let alone imagine what might happen in the next 5 years, you know, as everything becomes more digitized and, you know, perhaps, you know, technology gets embedded into humans and all sorts. Maybe in the future we'll just be a floating brain in an aquarium, you know, with a harness around it, you know. And that was something that Roald Dahl once wrote a short story about.
I remember about the eye, the brain with an eye. Yes,
just
I
a
remember
brain
that.
with an eye in an aquarium.
Yes.
So like, where is it? So we'll look at, I mean, there's so much to talk about. So we'll look at all that. So, but first, like, where are we now? And who are those powers that be? Because that's one thing you talked about, is this is kind of like a monster, but it's an invisible monster. Yeah. Because if someone's addicted to alcohol or drugs, then you can tell.
Yeah.
But if someone is addicted to porn, you can't necessarily tell, unless it gets to a really bad point where they become depressed and withdraw and all that kind of stuff. But also you don't get a hangover from watching porn, for example.
I think women can tell when a bloke's porn addicted. There are sort of, you know, you get those sort of just boundary pushing behaviours, and just so that there are certain tells that I think, yeah, I think I've got a pretty good grasp of when a man's porn addicted.
Got a porn dar.
Yeah, I have porn dar.
Okay, so who are those powers that be?
So it's very hard to get a handle on the size of the industry, and I think it's what makes it so sinister is the reach it has into our minds, and that's sort of where the power lies, rather than even a transaction. I mean, obviously there's trafficking, there's huge organised crime, there was sort of, you know, there's a sort of a subculture, if you like, that runs along and influences each of us, and influences sort of on a financial sense. It's huge. But I think really it's about the way it shapes values and the way it shapes all of our values. So I don't think it's possible to necessarily pinpoint it to, the executives of Pornhub or the executives of X-Hamster or, whichever sort of particular, or even of OnlyFans. I think it's more the way it changes behaviour, which is where its power lies. And I think that's what makes it so dangerous and difficult to tackle.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to blame it on the boomers. I think it's all their fault, because the boomers, they're at retirement age and they are living off their pensions, and their pensions are invested in all manner of things, in sort of a wide array of businesses and hedge funds and venture capital funds, funds like Ethical Capital Partners, which sounds really nice, but also owns Pornhub. Right. The reason I mention that is to show that someone who might not think that they had any connection with the porn industry at all might be living in part off the profits of that.
One thing that really surprised me, so if I think about where are we today, we're in a place where it's now, it's so normalized, right? Because a few years ago, it's like it became normal that everybody had a Facebook page. Yeah. And then it became normal that younger people maybe went to Tumblr and Instagram, but everybody had a social media presence. Yeah. And then it became normal that everybody started, or loads of people started using online dating. Mm-hmm. Like there was some shame around that, but now that's just normal. Yeah. But it keeps going a bit further, where now it's normal for so many people to have an OnlyFans profile. Yeah. Like you had Kate Nash saying, I'm going to put pictures of my bum on OnlyFans to fund my American tour or whatever that was. I mean, she's got a lot of brilliant takes. Also, for example, if I go on Grindr to meet a guy, now often it says there, oh, I'm an OnlyFans creator. So they're not looking to meet up even to have a good time. Mm-hmm. They want to get someone to make content with. And like if people ask me, what do you do? And if I just want to keep it simple, I say, oh, I'm a YouTuber. And then last year I thought, that sounds a bit old school, I'll say I'm a content creator. But if you say that to a gay man, they think you make porn on OnlyFans. Yeah. That's how normalized it has become. Mm.
Well, you've just perfectly encapsulated what the book is about. We didn't notice this coming. You just wake up one morning, and it's there, and it's normal, and you can't describe yourself as a content creator
or as a woman.
Or
here we are.
So that's to your earlier question about shame. This is how things slowly erode bit by bit in a way that we don't notice it until we somehow get to a world where people are incapable of having meaningful relationships with each other, not because they decided that it would be better to have sex without love, but just because they forgot that love was an option.
Right, and also even in a casual situation, this is so minor compared to the other stuff you describe in the book and the victims of porn. But once I had a guy over who happened to live right next door. This is where Grindr is great. I'm like, are you in my kitchen? Anyways, he comes over and then he did something that I really didn't like. And I asked him, why did you do that? But normally I wouldn't have asked because you don't want to spoil the moment. But at this point I just went, why did you do that? And he just went, oh, I saw that in porn.
Can I ask, was it trying to force your head down to choke on cock when you really didn't want to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was exactly that.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I've had that too, and I didn't join the dots. That was.
It's where they use your head as a flash jack.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he didn't even have the goods.
Yeah, right, okay.
Right? I'm like, at least if you're going to do that, make sure you have the goods. But that's when I thought, wow, they see something, then they think that somebody in real life wants that. It's like, no, I told them to leave.
Well, if you think that is a sex act.
Yeah.
But also you mentioned in your notes that you sent us Rule 34.
Rule 34.
Which is, if it exists, then there is it. So we need to think about porn as beyond the body parts going into each other, and the scenarios that are depicted too. So as you say, if you can imagine it, it's there. There's teacher-student porn, daddy-daughter porn. It's gone a long way since the washing machine fixer comes to sort of do
The
things.
plumber.
Yeah, the plumber. And as Joe mentioned before, when you watch these things, when you masturbate and have an orgasm, your brain is flooded with all sorts of chemicals. People talk about dopamine, but there's also chemicals like oxytocin, which is, make us bond with what we have just had sex with. And we've not had sex with a person, we've had sex with an idea. We might have had sex with incest or rape or violence, and that is what we become attracted to. Now, some people might take that into the real world, and it might influence the acts that they commit. But even if you don't commit a crime, that still becomes the only thing that you can orgasm to, or even get an erection to.
Right.
And going back to your relationships thing, why on earth would you have sex with a real person if that person isn't going to play your daughter, if they're not going to, play into your rape fantasy? They stop becoming an object that you direct your sexual desire to, because what's been cemented in your head is what you've seen. Right.
And this is where, one line early on in the book says, porn doesn't serve our sexual taste, it shapes them.
Yes.
And this is where this is so dangerous, because what can be more fulfilling than a loving relationship with another person where you can share intimacy and bond? Mm-hmm. And this is like the coldest thing. And as you said, that's what porn competes with. Mm-hmm. It competes with how we as humans can connect on the deepest of levels.
So that's hard. That's really hard, and it takes a lot of time that we don't have to invest in relationships, to hear things that you don't like and that you disagree with, and to have arguments and to make up and to listen to someone else. We are not used to things which are hard. Modern life is designed to give us exactly what we want when we want, for there to be no what's the word that they use in tech? Everything is to be seamless.
Frictionless.
Frictionless and seamless.
Yeah.
Which is funny.
Yeah, well, yes, quite, yeah, sorry.
You need a bit of friction, don't you?
Well, quite. So, but
there's a
yeah.
song about that. There's a friction, too many friction.
That's a new one on me, but
Is it from the 80s, I think?
it might.
I'll find it and I'll splice it in.
There's a fraction, too much friction.
But also, Avenue Q, that musical?
Never seen it, but yes.
They have a song called The Internet's for Porn.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
So there's some character, and it's all like a piss take on Sesame Street. So one of these characters is singing this gorgeous, innocent, lovely thing about how wonderful the internet is. And then the chorus, like the monster, or whoever plays the monster, goes, "The internet is for porn. The internet is for porn. Why do you think the net was born? Porn, porn, porn.
Well, I mean,
Grab your dick and double click for porn, porn."
I'm so old that I can remember when the internet was made out of cats.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's really old.
Fuck.
It's a bit like people saying, "Oh, Twitter in the olden days, people were really nice to each other. Then everyone came along and had bigoted views and arguments." And
But see, this is the thing about the urge for sex, which is such a primal human urge.
Yes.
Whatever technology is invented, the first thing it's used for is sex, generally. Like with the first ever camera, naked people. The first ever, on the internet. And I mean, how much percentage of the web is porn?
Disputed.
Okay. I had a quick search, so this is not in-depth research, but I looked at sort of what are the biggest industries of whatever in the world, and war, the biggest one, then pharma, then gaming, which is huge, then film, and then porn. So porn is in the top 5. Now, this is, as I said,
I'd actually say it's probably involved with all of those other industries.
That was the next. Honestly, I was going to make that point next. But yeah, because it's true. And even Elon Musk and his stupid AI assistant.
Oh, God,
Like,
I know.
And he's got a son who thinks he's a woman.
It's like, where does he get the stereotype from?
Duh.
Obviously.
And he's very worried about falling population levels in the West too, and he hasn't really joined the dots there.
No.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Well, let's get a meeting with the guy. So, in terms of where we are today, everything's online. OnlyFans is now normal, kind of thing. And you even had a footballer who thought, I'm going to quit my professional footballer career and go on OnlyFans because I'll make more money. We've got Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue, and you described it as they have one woman sexual freak shows where it's like how many men can penetrate them within a day. And they're both quite, they're well-spoken, intelligent women. They sort of present that as, I'm in control, I know what I'm doing. They're making sackloads of money, like crazy amounts of money, like millions a month, right?
Yeah. Huge money.
So that then presents to other young women like, oh, wow. Some would even say this is what, the feminist dream?
Yeah, I get you. Yeah. I mean, something I find just utterly repugnant about the both of them is that they don't just, they're sort of so focused on when you look at the damage, when you look at sort of the criteria they use to judge whether they're having a successful life, well, clearly it's going to be very difficult for them to have fulfilling relationships. Clearly it's going to be very difficult for them to even have friendships. And when people say it's infantilizing towards them to suggest that they're driven by trauma or that they're driven by sort of a lack of something in their lives, actually, I would say the people who are clicking on that content need to grow up and take responsibility for what they're doing, because we know generally when it comes to women who are in the industry, yes, they have suffered trauma. Yes, there is something dark that drives them to do what they do.
Right.
And just by normalising it, just by spreading it, you are making it that much harder for victims of sexual violence to escape that unfortunate sort of vortex that sucks so many into it. And yeah, I mean, do they look happy and fulfilled to me? No, not really. I mean, I don't like focusing on the personal because I don't think it's particularly helpful. But when it comes to Lily Phillips, she did say that some of the first people to sign up to her account were friends of her father's, which, I think suggests something's perhaps not quite right there. And I think in a way, yes, they're making a lot of money. Yes, they are sort of, there's always this sort of temptation to divide into victims and perpetrators. I think actually sometimes you can be both, and I would put them both in that category.
Right. And that reminds me of a speech by Ash, is it Reagan? Ash?
Yeah.
This was particularly about prostitution.
Yeah.
And she's like, we never hear about from the buyers. We never put the buyers, in the spotlight and let them speak, because then nobody would agree with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how many of the men lining up to use or to basically have their wank inside Lily Phillips or Bonnie Blue wear balaclavas, and there's footage of a young man whose mum finds out that he's gone, and she comes and pulls him out the queue, and that's one can almost be encouraged by that men do realise that there is a bit of shame here, but not so much that they think that they maybe might not do it. They are driven to do, and this speaks very, very much to one of the features of all addictions, which is denial. The hardest thing or the worst thing to do to somebody who's quite obviously suffering from addiction is tell them and get them to realise that they're drinking too much, or that their crack habit has spiralled a bit out of control, because the only way that you can keep doing that is to lie to yourself, to say that you are actually in control. And it's the same with your sexuality too. There is no pleasure in going and having your 45 seconds with a stranger that you couldn't get with your imagination and a bottle of baby oil. And they are compelled to do it. They must be for some other reason.
Also, can you imagine the smell in that room? Anyways, but anyway, yeah, OnlyFans is now just part of common parlance. Everybody knows what it is. Something that I hadn't heard of was gonzo pornography that you talk about, which is...
Gonzo pornography is characterised by trying to put the viewer in into the scene. So the camera angle is sort of right up close, as if you, the viewer, are observing that happening to you.
And there's no pretense of narrative.
Yeah, quite. You know,
That's what kind of differentiates it. Straight in.
Yeah.
For want of a better phrase.
But in a way, that actually prefigures the new age of porn that we're about to, in some respects, are largely in, which is, you know, advances in artificial reality, virtual reality, and headsets. Is now, you will actually, that pornography, you will be immersed in that world. You will hear it on high quality headphones. You will see it in HD. You will be able to look around the scene. You will be able to get touch feedback too. Very, very, very soon. And you sort of talked about one of the biggest industries being gaming, and how pornography is usually the first use of a new digital technology. The intersection of gaming and porn is a very, very interesting one. And scary. And it's also a sense of pornography becoming a fantasy, becoming a game, becoming something that is online, something that is again sort of depersonalized and dehumanized too. So that's very, very much a future that we're going to see.
And I was going to say, I'd add to that, I think one of the other draws that perhaps is not acknowledged enough is that it gives, well, the primarily male users, a total sense of control. And I think, you know, when things are so uncertain and all the rest of it, and you know, I think you see this with so much. I think it is just that sense of absolute command and control that is very attractive and addictive.
And the more people feel that they don't have that in day-to-day life, the more they'll try to escape into. Well, it's like those incels, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, and once you've done that, why would you want to go with a complicated human being who says no, who's on their period, who doesn't particularly want sex? Some of they tried to make a sex doll with AI, and the USP of this doll was you had to sort of charm it into bed. You had to sort of engage it in conversation and flirt.
Well, so you get a sense of the chase.
Yeah, quite. And users absolutely hated it. They said, no, I don't use a doll for this. You know, if you have to make an effort, I might as well go out and make an effort with a human being.
Right. Might as well go on a date. Oh my God. Right. So we're already in the age of deepfake porn. And you mentioned a website called Clothes Of, where you can generate naked images of people without their consent. I mean, they can now, and all things in AI with AI are going so fast. Like now, there was a clip on Twitter, and it was just like cats running a McDonald's or something, and they're flipping the burgers, and it's like, wow, this is crazy. But they could take, for example, the image of Marilyn Monroe and do a whole porn film with her. Like, where's the consent? Where's the copyright? And when people can do something, then they will. Like, there's a story in the book which is really disturbing of this 14-year-old girl who had her face photoshopped on a porn model, and she... Yeah?
Can I say that this is beyond sort of stitching on somebody's head onto someone else's body. This is me taking an image that I could have taken off LinkedIn or Instagram, or I could have surreptitiously take a photo and turn that into moving image porn, having you doing exactly what I want. I could have you having sex with a woman. Yeah.
With Joe.
Oh, Jesus
Jesus
Christ.
Well, but yes, that's the whole point. Yes, I could. We all could.
And then we say turfy things.
Yeah, you know, and we laugh.
But if you've imagined it, it's already happened, right? Oh God.
It is. The thing to sort of get through to those who don't know, and this was news to me, is that this is not something you can do. This is something that people are doing.
I was going to say, well, I mean, as well, the political dimension to this is that, you know, you can do it to your political enemies. You can do it to... So there are brilliant women behind an organisation called Collective Shout, which campaigns against pornography. Right. And they have had deepfake pornography made of them as a way to kind of, you know, intimidate them and shut them up and, you know, all the rest of it. Right. And I think that sort of the use of pornography as a silencing tool, particularly for women, is really powerful and very disturbing.
can I just add on that? The reason why the founders of Collective Shout were being targeted is they successfully had a game removed from a popular gaming platform called Steam. It was a rape game where the object was you played a character who, for some reason, I think someone had cheated on him, decided to rape his sister and his mum and other people in his family.
Yeah.
So because Collective Shout said this shouldn't have a classification, this shouldn't be shared, all the sort of porn addicted young men did exactly what Joe has said. So it's I don't want to be too serious, but we have to.
But it is really serious.
It's
really
real.
this goes down to, I'm not a religious person, but it kind of reaches into your very soul and switches it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful way of putting it.
Right, and there's the off switch, so they just become, there's another, look, the writing style I love, because it's so you don't mince your words, it's direct, and there's we just end up...
Masturbating meat puppets?
Oh my God. Then there was that porn guy that you mentioned in the book, really successful porn actor, and he described the actresses in his films.
Max Hardcore.
Yeah.
Paul Little, his actual name was, which
Yeah.
is somewhat satisfying.
Max Hardcore and his meat puppets.
Yes.
It just sounds like a heavy metal band, that plays shit music.
I think it's really important when we're talking about porn is that we don't use euphemisms like watch, because nobody sits down and watches porn. We're talking about people who close the door, they make sure that their partner is asleep or out, they fire up the computer, they load up a private browser, they load up a porn video, and they pull down their pants and they wank, and they masturbate, and they come into a tissue, and they feel ashamed or whatever. And this is the tricky thing that we have when we talk about it, because we have to talk about the terrible things that are in porn now and what men and porn users really do. So that itself is a big challenge, to talk about porn and to get beyond the idea that some people have that it's just a man and a woman having sex.
Yeah. No, you're actually saying this is a public health crisis.
Yeah. And I think what's as well frustrating is, you've got the sort of podcasty right-wing dude bros who don't want to touch it because, frankly, it cuts too close to home. And then obviously you've got the libertarian sort of liberal, and you've got the Guardianista types who don't want to touch it because basically it's something that sort of cuts across political divides, and nobody wants to go there, and it makes it very difficult to talk about.
Okay, I want to go back a bit to where we are today. Obviously, young people having access to mobile phones and the internet, and teens sexting each other really early on. Mm-hmm. Also, there was that girl that I mentioned, the 14-year-old, that she ended up being so distressed that she took her own life. At the same time, Pornhub is the third most socially impactful tech brand of the 21st century. What does that even mean, socially impactful? Because it doesn't sound like it's a good impact.
No, I think that was quite a subjective study by a branding agency, and I think they would have come up with the criteria themselves. But at the same time, Pornhub, I think, is one of those words like okay or Coca-Cola that is understood throughout the entire world. So,
it's more about awareness of the brand rather than...
Well, I was going to say it's sort of impactful in the same way as a meteorite.
Okay, and now one thing that really surprised me is that the CEO of OnlyFans is female. Mm-hmm. It's what, Kylie Blair?
Yeah, I mean, I can't help thinking that's possibly a deliberate part of a strategy.
Oh, to again make it okay. And look, it's a woman running it. Yay!
And I know, obviously they've kicked off Bonnie Blue, and I think they're sort of trying to combat some of the bad publicity they've had. And they're doing this whole thing at the moment around financial exclusion, which has a meaning in everyday life, but in their terms it means, oh, how terrible our creators can't set up bank accounts. And it's like, well, that's clearly not what that actually means. But so basically they're on a massive rebranding exercise.
Right. And your book also talks about how Pornhub sort of pretends to be on the ethical side.
Yes.
But in terms of all the content on there that's really violent, that would be a criminal offence in real life. they won't remove a video until it's been flagged up 15
Oh
times.
no! Sorry, they won't check a video.
Oh, they won't. They
until
won't
it's
even check.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this was from a whistleblower within Pornhub, and he said that that there was one person working five days a week to go through the videos being flagged, and people were flagging it and saying, "I'm sorry, these people are clearly kids."
Yeah.
And what's quite hard is because a lot of pornography now is to cater for people who want to watch children being abused, is that you will take a young-looking but legal-age woman, and then you will doll her up to look like a 13-year-old kid. They'll put freckles and pigtails and sort of lollipops, and that makes it much harder to find the real child abuse because it's all mixed in. And again, that's a sense of normalising what would once have be considered extreme by the entire population.
I was going to say from a personal point of view, I remember sort of years and years ago when I was sort of about 19, being approached to go into pornography because I looked so young at the time. So obviously I'm 4'7", so I'm absolutely tiny, and I used to look very, very young. And I was actually actively approached on a couple of occasions by people who wanted me specifically because I looked so young.
What did you do? Slap him in the face?
No, do you know what? At the time I was flattered.
Wow.
Yeah. It was bizarrely enough my boyfriend at the time, he said, "Don't do it." And I thought, God, what a controlling bastard. And it's like, obviously years since, I'm just like, oh my God, that was a very close call.
But at the but this goes to show how easy it is to
Yeah.
get sucked into it. And there's one line in the book that's, again, it's quite chilling, where appearing in porn is just a hazard of childhood.
Yeah, I think it is now. Yeah.
It's increasingly a hazard of anybody who puts their face online. Now, if you work in an office, you might fancy a colleague, it might pluck up the courage to go and ask them for a date, but you usually think better of it. Now you can just take their photo off LinkedIn and turn them into porn, and then you might share that with other colleagues too.
Sorry.
Right. So, okay. We've kind of covered my next section of questions. It's who's watching. So there was a figure, and you say it's hard to come by these figures. Men 73%, women 27%, but it's more what they're watching, right? Yeah. So you mentioned it. There's so much violent porn, incest porn, the barely legal sort of teen porn, and that teen porn is twice as popular as the older woman porn. When I first moved into a flat back in 2003. And I would get this post in a black plastic bag, and it was granny porn. So whoever lived there before me was, an avid lover, and these were like women, like not just in their 60s. They were so much older, and there were so many of them. It's like this was like a catalogue, right?
Exactly the same thing happened to me when I was a student. The person who lived in the house before us was into that, and it was some of the darkest. It was women who clearly had suffered strokes, and you wondered if they actually knew what was going on. It was very, very disturbing.
Do you know what? Weirdly, I remember an ex of mine, sort of from years and years ago, had a real thing about Victorian porn, and his reasoning was at the time was that it's more ethical because basically they're all dead. A lot of it was made in mental hospitals and psychiatric hospitals.
No.
Yeah.
Now, from a business point of view and a business development point of view, I can see that if you're part of the pornocracy and you want to sustain your industry, you want to grow it, then you keep adding more extreme stuff.
Yes.
So I can sort of see why they would push that. But why does the consumer, or, and even that is quite a sanitized term, because in the end, all the consumers are being exploited by this.
Essentially, it's like being a drug user.
Why does it appeal to watch all that well, I was going to say taboo stuff, but then that kind of answers my own question because it is taboo, I guess.
Well, no, I mean, most people, I would say, the stuff that they end up watching is not the stuff that they start watching. If you are watching the same kind of video, then your arousal response will go down over time. We are men, we're human beings, we're mammals. The mammalian sexual drive, it craves volume and it craves variety too. I mean, there's been experiments with, you get a male rat and a female rat, and the male rat will mate with the female 15 times until he's completely shagged out. They take the female out, they put a new one in, and suddenly he gets a new lease of life and keeps going. It's the same with humans. You show men a pornographic time 6 or 7 times, their arousal rates get lower each time.
Right.
Put a new film on, and it goes up. And if you think of men doing this over time, it's like, okay, well, I've tried that. Let's try something that's different from before. And step by step, they will end up going to stuff that previously they had no interest in it at all. It's very interesting to see how many men end up watching gay porn because it's just a bit different.
I was reading an article from 2013 about that this morning. It was like, not Dear Deirdre, because it was The Guardian, it was Mariella Frostrup. So she was responding to a woman saying, "Hi, I've been married to my husband for 3 years, we've got 3 kids, but he's a porn addict, but he's into gay porn. And now he's going to gay saunas and having gay sex."
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And so she's like, what do I do? And,
Leave him.
Okay, so, and this is where we get to the kind of like the really sinister part about why it becomes so addictive. So in the book you describe, because I'm familiar with the idea of you become desensitized to something, therefore you need more to get the same hit.
Yes.
But you also talk about another aspect which gets more sensitized, which is the anticipation of it, right? So the craving gets stronger, but the fulfillment or the satisfaction gets reduced. And then you just end up chasing the dragon.
Very, very, very much so. And in fact, the craving becomes part of the whole thing. Pornography is not serving a need, which is to ejaculate and have an orgasm. People get addicted to the aroused state. That's why browsing goes on for hours and hours and hours. The whole point is not to come, it's to try and stay on that edge without coming, so you can see more and more and more, as if you're chasing that perfect video, that perfect scenario.
Right.
And once you come, then it's all over and you go down from that aroused state. And you were talking about chemsex before. That obviously goes on for hours and hours, days and days.
I don't get it, Like I was at a party once, which was a normal party, by the way. It was just meant to be a birthday party, but I got there quite late. It was about 11 in the evening. And when I got there, there were men, there were women, and it was just a birthday party, but they were quite drunk. And then at one point, people sort of migrated downstairs to the bedroom. It was like a basement flat. So for ground floor and basement, and we're just chatting away, and then suddenly it turned into something sexual, and then there were no women in the room, just to make that clear. So we had a nice time, at least I had a nice time, and did whatever, and then thought, great, okay, I'll go back into the living room and crashed out on the sofa. When I woke up about 6 hours later, I go back into the bedroom. And they're all still there, and they're all still at it, but they're all limp.
Yeah.
Even when I was there, most of them couldn't get a hard on. And I'm like, what's the point of drugging yourself up to the point where you can't get hard, but you keep that feeling going of, oh.
Can I ask, was it the same people in the room as when you left?
Yeah.
Okay, because
not all of them, but some of them. So there are a couple left there, and they were the same people, and they'd just been taking this, taking that, whatever, because one was phoning a dealer while he was in the room. What's the point of keeping that state of being horny, but not being able to perform?
Yeah.
And therefore, to shoot your load is like, what's the point? I don't get it. But you talk about something called limbic capitalism in the book, which looks more at why we as humanity, get so hooked on it. Limbic capitalism is technologically advanced but socially regressive business systems that are out to basically get the consumer hooked, right? And the limbic system is part of the brain that's responsible for feeling and gratification.
So any consumer good that makes you feel good is having an effect upon the part of your brain that processes rewards that make us want something and make us like something. And it could be chocolate, or it could be heroin,
Right.
or it could be porn. If you can tickle that part of the brain and turn it towards your products, then you've got a customer for life.
Yeah.
And so pornography is in competition with all the legitimate and illegitimate limbic capitalists. Of course, you can do more than one at a time.
And you'll go out on a limb
Yes, very
to
good.
get it. And that's where you talked about how dopamine... It's the same with smartphones and smartphone addiction and notifications. It's not even getting the notification that hooks you, it's the anticipation.
Yeah.
It's the reward seeker, isn't it?
I was
that
going to
gets you
say,
hooked.
is, I sort of actually for an article I wrote before this book, quite a long time before, and I knew someone who was a lesbian who had an OnlyFans account, and all of the subscribers were male, and she wasn't remotely interested in them sexually, but there was something addictive just in performing for them, just in the validation, just in that, and she sort of became addicted to doing OnlyFans for their attention, even though she didn't find them remotely attractive or have any interest in them.
So is that more about they find me attractive?
Yeah,
I'm
but
so
it's
sexy,
but I
I
think
control
it was,
them. And maybe, I don't know, if there's a dynamic of I'm the woman, I don't like men, but now I've got you in the palm of my hands.
Yeah, but she found it really hard to stop, and it ended up controlling her. Even though OnlyFans, the way it markets itself, it's all about the woman being in control. But weirdly, even though she was a lesbian, she found herself sort of doting on their approval.
Right. So, is there such a thing as responsible consumption when it comes to porn? So, for example, when you look at smoking or drinking, or even in those discussions that I've heard about chemsex, they're saying that it's not about abstinence, it's about harm reduction. Mm-hmm. Is that something that also applies to porn? Or is it more like, never watch any of it again? Is there so-called innocent porn?
Personally, I don't think there's any such thing as ethical porn. I think it is such an intrinsically corrupting force. I think whether you're as a consumer or whether you do not know what the person making it, what's influencing them to do it. I don't think there's any way you can be absolutely sure. I do think it's fair to acknowledge that there are different ways that people use it. I do think it's fair to say, obviously, same way as drugs, not everyone who uses it is going to get addicted. Not everyone who uses it is going to, crumble their marriage. But I think it is dangerous enough that we need to regulate it and acknowledge that for some people, actually, yes, it is an incredibly sort of corrosive on a personal level, and obviously it's hugely damaging on a political and a social level.
And yet, porn is not recognized as something that can be addictive, right? And as we said earlier, like, you don't have the same symptoms, if you like. Like with drugs, you've got a come down. If you drink, you get a hangover. But with porn, there's no recognition of that. Mm-hmm. And there's one guy that you mentioned, Nicolaas Tinbergen, Dutch guy. He describes modern porn as super stimulus, right? It's something that doesn't exist in nature. And so we haven't actually evolved to cope with it.
That's not quite right, because I think he might be dead, and I think he might have died before porn. It was Tinbergen who came up with the idea of super stimulus. A really good example of that is refined sugar, which you don't find in nature. It's man-made, and we haven't really learned in the last 500 years what that is doing to our diet and our teeth and our health. And it's something that we have not evolved to cope with, and we have to evolve very, very quickly to work out how to fit that into our diet in a healthy way.
Right.
Porn is just like that, because the amount of imagery and the variety and the extremity do not exist in nature. You can't just go out and get that. And There's been experiments where you put some brightly coloured bigger eggs in a bird's nest, and the bird will pay more attention to them. You'll put bigger, more brightly coloured butterfly models, and the males will gravitate towards them. That's what a superstimulus is to be attracted to the unreal.
Right, okay. Okay, so question from me, in language that I think you might approve of, considering how you've written the book. If you fuck up your brain with porn, can you unfuck your brain?
I think it will always sit with you. So I was thinking about this earlier, and I suspect it's somewhat similar to grief, in that it changes you, but you learn to live with it.
The brain obviously is plastic. It gets less plastic as you get older. I don't have much to add to Joe's comments about the brain, but I think we need to look beyond the brain and to look at the damage that you may have done while you have been using porn. I think it's just as important to fix those things. I think in fixing those relationships, acknowledging what damage you did and where it came from, I think that's one of the best ways to change.
And that brings me right to my next section of questions, the victims. So we've already been talking for a while, and I'm not going to be able to go through everything in as much detail as I would like. But the victims, I think that's a huge part of the industry, because it's not just the performers, and there's so much damage being done to them, like from the very physical, where women end up being incontinent, or brain damage from being choked during sex. Then there's the psychological harm, and it's quite chilling to read that the typical career lasts only 18 months.
Yeah. And suicide is just off the scale, and self-harm and drug addictions, and I mean it's as you would expect, in a way, given what they are expected to do. Sorry, what was the question?
It's about the who are the victims, and then there's the human trafficking side of it, and children.
And then also, you have women like Jessel, who, obviously that was her husband again, though it wasn't sort of acknowledged as much as I think it should have been. The reason he was caught was that he was filming upskirting pornography in a supermarket. Right. And he was arrested on the basis of that initially. And obviously what he did to Jessel, that was filmed. And
had he posted that as well, or was that more for private?
I don't know, but they did discover sort of a lots of files. And there was a group recently very similar to the Insensu group that he was a part of, where there were 70,000 members, 70,000 men who were doing similar to their partners. It was on Telegram, the group, and it was busted, and so there are countless victims, not only of sort of, if you like, mainstream porn sites, but also of this just being incorporated into everyday abuse that happens to women. So for example, with the grooming gangs, we know actually that not only were some of them filmed in pornography, and that was then used as pornography, but some of them were threatened that their images would then be circulated. So sort of, revenge porn was then used against them to keep them compliant. So it's both a way of sort of enforcing behaviour, compelling behaviour, and also it's just a routine part now of sexual violence, and a way that men, I'm afraid to say, bond over the abuse of women. It's become very, very common.
Well, and it's all for the sexual gratification of mostly men.
Yeah, but I think the weird thing is, I think it's sort of a part of a homosocial bonding between men, if you like. So they sort of abuse women to bond with one another, and that's a pattern that...
Well, so they can boast to one another
kind
and go,
of, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And you described, because earlier we mentioned brain damage from choking, incontinence. You describe it as an occupational hazard.
Yes, it is. So strokes are now the leading cause of strangulation. Sexual strangulation is now the leading cause of strokes amongst women under 40. It was a pretty sort of unknown practice once. Now 38% of college-age women have experienced it during sex. It's very, very common. And obviously, similarly, anal sex, similarly, lots of sort of things that were once niche have been totally normalised by pornography. And I mean, there was one weird little anecdote from the book, which was there was a young man who admitted to The Guardian that he choked his girlfriend, and he went back to the journalist who had interviewed him a couple of weeks later, and when he was asked why at the time, he said it's because he thought his girlfriend liked it. And when he actually asked his girlfriend, she didn't like it, obviously. And he said, oh, funny thing is, I thought she liked it, and that's why I did it. So, you know, it's not even that it's shaping deviant behaviour, it's also shaping the behaviour of people who think they're being caring and loving to their partners, because it's just warped social norms to that extent.
The great thing about falling in love with someone, or even just, you know, getting close enough to them that you will go to bed with them, is exploring stuff. And, you know, all that works, that's really nice. That's, well, you know, that's not really for me. And instead you're being, these people are being told what they should be doing. They're not having fun. They're not in the moment. They're not with their partner. They're not communicating. They're seeing it as a task.
And running through scripts.
And with checklists.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen this. I must do this. I must say this.
Yeah.
This is how. There was a research by the Children's Commissioner, and they interviewed people aged 16 to 21. I think over half of young men said that they got most of their sex education from porn, and over a third of women, I think.
And I mean, as well, we are now seeing for the first time, last year, National Police Use Council announced that for the first time, the majority of child sexual abuse is committed by children against other children.
Yes, I read
So
that.
it is that sort of pervasive in terms of, you know, when it comes to brains that are that elastic, it is really shaping their behaviour.
And if it gets in there early,
Yeah.
it gets hardwired more quickly,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then there's a relationship expert, Harry Fish, that you talk about in the book, who says pornography is the single largest non-health issue that makes relationships crumble.
I think he might have said that in 2007, or it's certainly before the sort of the tube site revolution from about sort of, I don't know when that started, about 2010.
Yeah, about that.
Okay, sorry to rush you guys.
No, that's
The future. You say in the book, the future will be even crueler, more abusive, and more transactional, which is so depressing. And then you talk about the blurring of physical and digital, the physical and the digital realms, destroying concepts of intimacy and sexual love with AI and user-generated stuff, not being able to tell reality from fantasy anymore. Also, when you're so used to controlling all these different characters or elements in a video game, then
Yeah.
real life is going to be a bit of a sobering experience
Yeah.
that maybe some people can't even process anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was interesting to read that ex-porn performers launched a campaign in 2022, for example, to raise the minimum age from 18 to 21. So there is pushback even from those who've been in the industry. So what's the answer? What's the answer to this nightmare that it just seems to be developing?
Well, I mean, I think you and I have slightly different takes on this. I think, obviously, my background being sort of interest in feminism and women's rights, I think we have always had struggles. We have always had things we've had to really sort of kick against. And this is just, you know, same shit rebooted for a different century. I mean, I think it's that, you know, I think the scripts that it's based upon, the idea of women being chattels or being owned as sort of men bonding over our degradation, I think those are ancient and would be readily recognisable to a Bronze Age warlord. I mean, it's ancient. But at the same time, I do have hope that that there are legislative solutions. So, for example, enforcing some of the bloody laws we already have over things like, for example, extreme pornography. That could be done if there was the political will. What we're lacking is the political will. I do think age verification is a really good idea, and I know there's a lot of panic around that, which frankly I think is ridiculous. And I think when it comes to a sort of grassroots movement, we need to do what we have done with transgenderism, because it is the source of so many of these sort of social problems is actually pornography. So I think now we need to turn the energy of Turf Island towards pornography. And I think if we do that, we have a chance.
Right, and then you'd be accused of going from Turf Island to Prude Island.
Fine. Fine with being a prude.
Okay.
Joe mentioned before that it's possible to be to be a victim and an abuser and an accomplice all at the same time. I think that describes really any man who uses porn. I think the key to solving this epidemic lies within men. I think men have got to realise that what they are doing to themselves first. I mean, if you can't appeal to men on behalf of their spouses, on behalf of the relationships between the sexes, the degradation of women, sadly that doesn't seem to be working, because feminists be talking about that for eons. You just have to appeal to their penis. You have to say that what you are doing is hurting you, and it is stopping you from having a sexually fulfilling life. I really want to get across by how much men are damaged by this, and how the whole problem could be solved if men just stop using porn. I don't want to stop men using porn. I want men to stop using porn. I think there's a big difference there. I think one of the ways that we can start to do that is we start talking about porn as what it is, and the sorts of acts and the sorts of scenarios. Stop talking about watching porn. We start talking about masturbating to incest porn, and we need to bring.
That completely changes the whole conversation.
And we need to do that to bring in a realization that porn is shameful, and that there's a reason for shame. It's not just for prudes. Shame is a sort of almost part of our emotional nervous system. It tells us when something isn't quite right, when we're doing something that hurts us. So I would say bring back shame and talk about pornography as it really is, and don't be squeamish about using words that like wanking instead of watching.
There was somebody that you mentioned in the book who did a campaign, if you like, that was quite successful, but then you wondered if would this still be successful today. And what's her name?
Layla Mickleswaite.
Yes. So because if the moral argument isn't enough, you need to basically hurt the porn beast in other ways. And she went for what you call the unofficial regulators, which was the credit card companies, basically.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think there was a brilliant strategy, and that's, of course, why OnlyFans are now going on about financial exclusion. I think part of why that worked was because there was still enough of a sense of shame around pornography for the likes of Visa and MasterCard to go, oh, hang on, do we really want to be associated with a website which hosts numerous images of trafficking? So she managed to get 90% of Pornhub's content taken down because it couldn't be verified. She's an incredible campaigner.
90%?
90%. And that's because they hadn't verified that performers were basically of age, that they weren't being coerced, blah, 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 blah. So she managed to do that. What an incredible woman. And yeah, that was she was very strategic. But I think now that this sort of drip of sort of nonsense around financial inclusion, and also I think because of crypto growing, I suspect it might be harder to do in the future.
Can I say that payment companies, ancillary service providers like Visa and PayPal, they don't make any decisions about ethics. Everything to them is a number. If 51% of people approve of porn, approve of rape and incest porn, then they will keep paying.
Yeah.
If 49% of people disapprove and 51% do, then they will stop. So Layla had incredible success, but to keep up that pressure, I was on a porn forum where people were talking about how evil Layla Micklethwait was and Collective Shout, and one person said, look, we've just got to mobilise. There's more of us than there are of them, and that's very true.
Which is the same with the whole trans thing. It's like they've been at the table all the time.
Yeah.
Now finally we're at the table and things are shifting. And a key point that you made at the end of the book was it's about reducing demand. If the demand's not there, because you said that the biggest fear of the pornocracy is that men will put their phones down or close their laptop and stop watching. So I guess it's about how do you create a wider awareness of, well, this is what porn actually is. These are all the implications of it. This is how it. And if they don't get the moral side of it, then it's like, well, but look at what it's doing to you. You can't get hard with your partner anymore, but you can only get hard if you watch that type of content, because that's sad.
Yeah. And as well, just sort of, if I could have one campaign off the back of this book, for me, it would be ensuring that we start joining up the dots between what men who perpetrate sexual violence are looking at online and their porn search histories and the crimes that they commit, because there is almost always a link and it isn't routinely collected, and I think that is such a sort of huge breach of joined up thinking and of data sharing. That's something we need to start doing so that we can sort of build up a profile that can then be used to start to take this problem seriously.
Right, so then you have data to connect porn usage to criminal behavior.
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm sure some people would go, oh my God, Big Brother, but
Tough. If they're ashamed of it, they shouldn't be doing it.
it's either Big Brother or Porn Brother, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, and
just very, very quickly, there was an article in the paper either today or yesterday about how people who were applying to join the police would be checked to see if they were members of Freemasonry. That didn't attract a huge amount of comment. How about if somebody's going to join the police force to see whether they watch rape porn? I think that's fair.
wow.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I mean, imagine if you had a case where, like, there's a rape victim in court, and then the judge has to disclose, by the way, this is what I watch.
I genuinely think if we want to have any sort of...
That's really dark, because then almost what's playing out in the courtroom is part of the fantasy.
Yeah, and I think it's a thing.
I mean, there's part of this that it just feels like it's too dark, but you've had to go there. It took what? How long did it take, the whole process of research and writing?
About a year.
That was about between 18 months and a year. Yeah. We did take some breaks.
Right. Okay. There's a song by a singer called Christine Collister. It's beautiful, and she just sings, "How will I ever be simple again?"
Yes.
Well, I think the gender wars sort of did inoculate us a bit.
Yeah.
Inoculate. Well, you're still standing. All this feeds into an even bigger question: how to remain human in the age of digital depersonalization. Right. So, final question, because I'd like to end it on a high note. Everything sounds like an innuendo now, or a double entendre. What is the key to good sex?
To good sex?
Yeah. Good loving sex.
I think...
Is that an okay question to
Yeah,
ask?
I think that's fine.
No.
Yeah.
It is the question to ask.
Right.
Yeah. I think something that sort of unites us as humans actually is weirdly the distance that we have from one another, and that sort of weird sense of loneliness. And I think the beautiful thing about really good sex is it's the moment when that's overcome, when you genuinely feel a sense of connection. So for me, good sex, whether it's with a man or a woman, is about connection.
I don't have much to add to that, but I think there should be laughter there, or at least sort of the capability not to take yourselves too seriously. If it becomes mechanical, a chore, something you worry about, if you're worried too much about sort of doing the right thing, then you're not lost in that moment. You're not lost in in that other person, and that's why sort of porn scares me. Not just that people will have less sex, but when they do have sex, that the porn is controlling them, and they're not lost in their partner.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I agree. I mean, it's very Spice Girls, two become one. But,
Oh, it is, isn't it? Oh,
but it
truly.
is because when you're with someone, and you can experience, when you experience it, it is amazing.
Yeah.
Where you get lost in each other.
And it's about all the senses rather than this sort of horrible, disembodied. Yeah.
Yes, you're not thinking about stuff.
No.
You literally get lost in the moment. And you get lost in each other. Oh, there's a Barbra Streisand song, Lost Inside of You. This does feel like something just huge that we're up against as a species. It sounds a bit grand, but I think it's true. Just with all this technology, especially the speed at which things are happening now with AI, how do you stay human?
Can I have a go?
Yeah. And then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sure. I think with if the only way to get an addict to address his or her behaviour is not to tell them about the damage that they're causing, but to present them with an image of something that they want.
Yes.
And that's what we must all do. I'm afraid I don't have a great big answer, but we've all got to live that life, and to seize what was a very, very short life is not just not to use porn, but just to have the best relationships we have and the best sex that we can have, and just show the happiness that results from that, and just stand there to show ourselves that there is an alternative there if only they want.
Right, so in that case, let's raise our glasses, even though they're empty. And here's to sexual healing, I guess. And thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Ciao!
Ciao!
Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my PayPal and Patreon supporters. Because of you, I can make videos like this. Special shout out to my big spenders. Help Her Open, Mama Turv and the Turventines, Me Julie, The Lovely Mary, Julia, Dusty, Joodles, Leffy, Dorothy, Wildfire, Esther, and Martha. Thank you.